Hi, everyone. It's Rachel from Yoga for Diabetes, and I'm here with Karen Rose Tank, who is a certified integrative nutrition, health, and diabetes coach. And she's also a passionate yogi. And we're going to be talking today about her life with yoga, her life with nutrition, and how she manages it all. And I'm just really excited to have you here. So, hi, Karen.
Hi there. This is great to be here.
Great. So I'm just going to start, and I'm going to read your bio so everybody knows who you are. And then
Okay.
we go into our chat. So Karen is a certified integrative nutrition, health, and diabetes coach with a private practice in Princeton, New Jersey. And as a person living with type 1 diabetes for 20 years, Karen compassionately helps people struggling with diabetes, sugar cravings, excess weight, and other chronic conditions to take control of their health, managing their blood sugars, and reaching their goals. Her diagnosis at the age of 39 propelled Karen on a journey to explore healing approaches to living with this chronic disease. She was frustrated with being told what to do, but not being supported in how to actually do it. Finding and creating support for her life with diabetes has proven invaluable, be it for her low-carb diet, exercising regularly, or not feeling so alone, or finding the time for stress relief through yoga, meditation, or even the simple act of breathing. Karen has a 200-hour yoga certification and has recently completed a 10-month program in therapeutic yoga, focusing on both diabetes and anxiety. Yoga has a special meaning in her life as a way to connect her with her body and manage the stress of living with a chronic condition. She is passionate about bringing the healing powers of yoga to the diabetes community she works with. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
So, Karen, I'd love to hear your diagnosis story, and that's kind of something that everyone gets really curious about. So, can you take a moment and just let us know what happened?
Sure. So as I said, I was 39 years old. I had two young children, 4 and 8, and I was working full time. I had a 45-minute commute, and in September of that year, 1996, I was in a car accident, and I was okay, but my body went into shock. So, everyone asks you, how did you get type 1 diabetes? Well, I feel that it's usually a combination of, like a trifecta of events. So, so my body went into shock, and then I'll say for 3 months, I walked around with all the symptoms, blurry eyesight, excessive thirst, constant going to the bathroom, getting up during the night, extreme lethargy, but all these things like I had an explanation for. I was super tired, but I was a working mom with 2 little kids, who isn't exhausted, right? At 8 o'clock, I would lie down with them and put them to bed, and then I would crash out. It was fall, so the air was dry, so that's why I'm drinking a lot, but I'm going to the bathroom a lot because I'm drinking a lot. And then right around Thanksgiving, in November of that year, I started losing weight. And I had a Nordic track, remember those things? And I said, oh, wow, this is interesting. It's actually working. I'm like losing weight. And it started getting really suspicious where after Thanksgiving dinner, I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to put my jeans on. Like I ate so much. And the next morning, they were like falling off of me. So still, I was busy. I never put this all together. And long story short, my husband and I drove to Florida where my parents live. And okay, this is gross, everybody, but I was literally using my son's diapers to pee in, like in between the rest stops, because I was drinking so much. So who knows what, at the time, my blood sugar was obviously so high that we got to Florida, got to my parents' house. My mom had this big plate of cut up grapefruit, like fresh grapefruit. And I just started digging into it because it was like tart, and I thought that could cut my thirst. And I just couldn't cut the thirst, and I thought I was going crazy. So my mom says, call my sister. So my older sister is an internist and a rheumatologist, so she's a physician. And I start laying out all the things. See, you never tell anybody all of these symptoms. And so but as I'm telling her, she's like, oh my God, you have diabetes. I'm like, what do you mean I have diabetes? Like, you have diabetes. Like, come on. She's like, no, go to the hospital right away. And so we left my kids with my parents, and my husband and I went to the hospital. My blood sugar was 820, and the nurses are all freaking out. And, you know, they had to find a doctor, and it was actually Christmas Eve. So I spent Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in the hospital. We had to wait till like the doctors came back on staff to show me how to do things. And that was the beginning. And I cannot believe that this year, 2016, that is 20 years ago. It blows me away. That here I am still learning, still challenged, still connecting with this condition. It's not something that you sort of fix, obviously, as you know, fix one day and then you have to deal with it tomorrow. Like, you have to deal with it every meal, every exercise, you know, constantly. So so that's what brings me to diabetes.
Wow. That's so I'd also love to know, you know, when you discovered yoga, because I know you mentioned that you started yoga in high school. So obviously you'd already been doing yoga since before your diagnosis.
Yeah. So this is really fascinating to me. I was with a group of people when I was like a junior and senior in high school in like the early 70s, okay? The early 1970s. We found this woman who was like teaching yoga out in her house in the woods. Like, there was nobody really doing yoga in those days. So myself and two girlfriends, we would go to this woman's house, and I remember like standing on our head and doing inversions. And, you know, when you're 17 and 18 years old, you know, you could bend, and I also did gymnastics when I was in high school. And so I just loved the physical aspect of yoga. And then when I went to college, I couldn't find anybody doing yoga. So I had a book, like literally that was it, me and the book. There was no YouTube, no internet. And then I kind of like, then it faded. So I finished school, then I started working, then I met my husband, then I had kids, then I, you know, was still in the workforce, and like I was very busy, and yoga just really fell by the wayside. So it wasn't till I actually was diagnosed with yoga, and eventually after, I would say 2 or 3 years, I stepped out of my job because I had the kids and everything, and the job, and it was like I couldn't figure out how to take care of myself. My blood sugars were high. I wasn't getting any exercise. I was trying to be a wife, a mother, an employee, and I worked for a very, very passionate, visionary, actually in the field of food policy and agriculture. I have a master's degree in agriculture economics. So interesting that I'm in the food genre before all this happened. But I couldn't figure out how to take care of myself. So when I found a way to step out, I stepped out for a little while. And when I had the time, that's when I started coming back to yoga. I want to say, I guess that was around 15 years ago. I found some very influential teachers that spoke to me, and over time, what yoga did for me, the depth of it just like grew and grew and grew. So, yeah.
So I'd really like to know, you know, so how did you sort of start to bring that yoga part of yourself, which, I just love the way you said, I just realized that, nothing was kind of coming together, and then I sort of found yoga again. So how did that kind of help you with your diabetes management, or how did you notice that your reconnection with yoga helped you?
Yeah. So I would say initially I was attracted to yoga in my reattachment to yoga. I was looking for some physical exercise. So I kind of was attracted to sort of, flow and Ashtanga and classes where I would sweat. And because of type 1 diabetes, we know it's very important to build muscle. And so I wanted classes where I could, grow strong and feel strong in my body. But then at the same time, and I think when you fall upon the right teachers, and I will say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Because I've gone through many different teachers, and I would not have been ready for certain levels of yoga when I first was getting going 15 years ago. And so I would say everybody evolves. And that's what I love about it, that there's room for everybody. I mean, everybody can do yoga. And I sometimes get worried when my clients say, well, I can't do yoga, or I can't get down on the floor. There are so many adaptations to yoga that are now available that there's so many benefits. So we'll go back to the benefits. Okay, so there was the physical strength and the stretching, which I love. But then there's also something happens when you start breathing. And especially if you find a teacher that links the breath with every movement that you're doing. And that's the kind of yoga that I love. So say you're doing an hour class or a 90-minute class, you are inhaling deeply, exhaling deeply, rhythmically for that long period of time. So even if you say, I don't know how to meditate and I don't know how to do breath work, if you just go to a yoga class, it's almost like an enforced way of getting deep oxygen into your system. And then as that happens, cortisol reduces and you find some calm and some peace. And then eventually what started happening to me, and it might have been around the time where I was in a class and my blood sugar started going low. So I kind of stopped. I went over to the side. I was trying to be really quiet, pull out my meter and test. And I was shaking a little bit. The teacher walks over to me and he says, oh, I see you're testing your blood sugar. I'm like, yeah, I hope I'm not bothering anybody. He goes, don't worry, I have type 1 diabetes too.
Wow.
And I'm like, you? Oh my, you big yogi, you have type 1 diabetes? And we became very close friends from then on. But that was about, I'm going to say 10 years ago. And what was so fascinating to me is that he could be at such an advanced level. And I kept feeling in my head that, oh, the diabetes is holding me back. Look, I have to stop and test my blood sugar. And I was like blaming the diabetes for my lack of advancing or getting it or whatever, or restriction with yoga, or just really life, I guess. And I was very angry at my diabetes. And I started evolving to a place where this is who I am. And this is one of the big benefits for me, is yoga puts me in touch with my body, but not just the physical, right? So we do asana for all the physical, but it brings me the breath work and the meditation and the relaxation and shavasana bring me closer to like the essence of who I am. And that essence has nothing to do with diabetes. It's a freedom. It's a peace. It says, I am Karen. I am who I've always been. And I happen to have this condition called type 1 diabetes. And yes, it offers restrictions, and yes, there's challenges, but at the same time, perhaps it's leading me into a very, very special place where I become at peace with myself.
That's so beautiful, because that's exactly how I see it as well. So it's just so nice to chat with someone who feels the same. I'm just thinking also about the fact that, something that I read in your bio is that you're really into the whole low carb story, which is very much what I'm into as well. And I find that it's really helped me, just make sure that I don't have those erratic up and down roller coaster blood sugars. And I've been working with a few people, giving them private sessions who are type 1s. And I think that's been a big thing for them. We've talked a lot about how they want to get in control of their blood sugar. And, we've talked about the types of practices that we're going to do. But I always say to them, so, what's your diet like? How are you going? And some people are still, really happy just to eat whatever and inject. And I just would love to know, from your experience working with a low carb diet, how you find also, working with yoga, working with the diet, how that all kind of matches and comes together. So I'd love just to hear a bit more about that.
Okay. So I'll say that the reason I became a health coach, so I went back to school 6 years ago in integrative nutrition and health coaching. And I work with people with diabetes. What brought me to that is I was so frustrated at the typical ADA, go ahead, eat the cake and the cookies and just take more insulin approach. And about 3 years into my diagnosis, I came across the book, The Diabetes Solution by Richard Bernstein. And I'm like, why isn't anybody telling me about this? Oh my gosh. This guy eats very, very low carb. So I don't typically eat it quite as low as he does. But he writes a very fabulous book. It's in its 4th edition. And whether you buy into everything that he says, he teaches the whole concept that the less carbs that you have in your system, the less insulin you need. And therefore, the less, we all going to go up after we eat something, but the lower the spikes, the ups and downs will be. And so that said, I did follow his approach for a 3-month period. I lost weight. I had a A1C of 6.2. I did fantastic, but I couldn't keep it going. I had little kids, and there was, crackers and cookies and juice and things like that around the house. And even though everybody looked at me and said, "Oh, but you're such a healthy eater," I hate that word, a healthy eater, because what does that mean? It's healthy for what and healthy for who? So, I learned that healthy for me was relatively low carb, and but I didn't have anybody helping me do it or support me. I felt very alone in this approach. So I got involved in a cooking support group, and I run meetings for people with diabetes. And together, for an hour, we cook together low carb meals, and then we sit down and eat and share. So it's it's very, very cool. It's called the Suppers Program. And it's a very special, it started here in New Jersey, and it's growing, and we're becoming more web available, and we're going to do a training coming up on blood sugar on February 28th, and we have somebody Skyping in from California who's a type 1 diabetic, and she's actually vegan, so we're not tied to any one particular eating approach. It's all about supporting people wherever they're at in whatever approach works for them. Because as we know, our bodies are all different, and they're finding out more and more with our microbiome and genetics that we all process different foods differently. So anyway, that's what motivated me to go back to school and really switch my career and work with people with diabetes, because nobody was telling me that. And I would even say to my endocrinologist, look at this book that I discovered. And he's like, oh, that guy's a quack. And I'm like, what do you mean it's a quack? Look at my A1C. Oh my gosh. Like, I feel great. I'm doing wonderful. But I didn't find any support for that out in the traditional endocrinology world. And so that's what I do. I support people eating low carb. So, and lifestyle. So do you want to know what I eat? Or is that kind of what your question is? Or
Well, actually, I mean, I think that's great. Just everything that you said is really clear. It's more just, this question came up then.
Yeah.
So do you work with type 2s as well as type 1s, or is it just exclusively type 1s?
Well, actually, I also work with type 2s, because originally we started this cooking group just for type 1s, because we felt so different from everybody else. We wanted to all, test our blood sugar together around the table. We wanted to, how many carbs do you think are in this? How many carbs are in that? Just share it all and pull out our pumps and our CGMs. And but all the type 2 people that I kept interacting with, they're like, well, we want to know how you guys eat, because maybe that can help us too. So now I work with a lot of type 2s, and that's amazing. I mean, they can totally make significant changes in their blood sugar by changing what they eat. I mean, we can't really get off insulin, but they can lower their drugs. If they're on insulin, they can significantly lower their insulin. I mean, it's really remarkable what the type 2 clients can do when they get.
Sorry, and do you with yoga with those type 2 clients as well? I mean, what are you seeing as the results with type 2s with yoga? Because we know with type 1s, we're on insulin, so everything that we do is, we're trying to just reduce the amount of insulin that we need. As you said, less insulin, less roller coaster blood sugars, the control is better. So it's kind of, yoga is a bit of a no-brainer for us, because we can use those muscles to increase insulin sensitivity. But with type 2s, and this is, what I'm really interested in as well. I mean, yoga seems to be hugely beneficial in, helping to really mitigate the need for any medication and all that. So what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. So all the things we talked about, right? Like you said, for type 1s, with type 2s, the movement, the circulation, just doing something that moves the blood, that loosens up joints, builds muscle, maybe sometimes a little aerobic, but then also the stress relief. So I would say that while I am not teaching asana classes, I like to refer my clients to other asana classes, because I'm busy health coaching. I've always tried to figure out how to do all this, and I realize I can't do it all. We need people, other teachers. But what I do with my clients is breath work, meditation, relaxation, guided visualization, and all of that. So if we can relax, deep relax, our cortisol can go down. And type 1s know that, I had this window pop up. Okay. That cortisol shoots up your insulin resistance, the hormones. And so if people can just work on affecting the insulin resistance through reducing stress, they can make a huge impact. And then also that feeling of self-love. Many people now here's a difference between type 2 and type 1. Many type 2s feel that society looks at them saying, oh, you ate your way into this. Or you have type 2 because, it's your fault. It's not necessarily true. there's so much genetics with people that are type 2. There's skinny type 2s. So they don't look at their disease exactly the same way that we do. Type 1s feel like, okay, this happened to me, and don't feel like it was something that they did that brought it on. So there's in the type 2 world, I feel that yoga can bring self-love, self-compassion, and when you kind of love yourself more, you want to do things that treat it better. So there's a statement that your body is the temple of your soul. And I just find that that's so beautiful. And that, what do you do with a temple? Well, you take care of it, you treat it nicely, you give it water and healthy nutrient dense food, and you wouldn't throw junk into a temple. So that if you can learn that and learn to touch more inwardly, and I think, and yoga helps bring you there. I think it's a place that, yoga is very special, in the body awareness and in the meditative state that yoga can bring. So that's one of the big benefits, I think, also with people with type 2.
That's great. I think one of the other things you mentioned that you really wanted to chat about was the role of therapeutic yoga, because that's something that you've studied and are certified in, and how, actually what you wrote was, because I'm just going to read it here,
Go ahead.
was you'd love to mention what therapeutic yoga is and why it has become popular as both a teacher training and for people who have physical limitations. So do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Sure. So I don't know if everybody's even heard of therapeutic yoga or yoga therapy. It's kind of a new branch of yoga. And what's happening is that as all of us yogis age, which is inevitable, right? I'm trying to come to terms with aging and my body changing. And now it's not even necessarily about yoga. It's, joint issues and back issues. And I have a sciatica thing that happened. And yoga can be adapted with the sensitivity of people's individual conditions. So whether it's physical and people with osteoporosis, people with absolutely back issues, hip issues, knee issues, and then also things like diabetes, asthma. We have yoga for mental health. Because I mentioned a little thing about anxiety that I think living for 20 years with type 1 diabetes puts a lot of strain on us psychologically. And so I had a little bit of being prone to anxiety when I was young, but once I got diabetes, it kind of put me in another category because of all the things you need to deal with all the time. And yoga has been wonderful for that. So it's teaching yoga with a greater awareness of spine and anatomy, and perhaps you can't, go to, say, an active vinyasa flow or a hot yoga class because you have a knee issue or you have a hip issue and you can't keep up with a class. So the whole idea is, find another class where it goes slower. Find a class, maybe a chair class. You can do amazing yoga in a chair. You can use your chair to twist, you can bend down. So all of these kind of extensions where you're still getting the benefits of yoga, the same practices of yoga, but just at a different sort of physical level. So that instead of, you don't want to get injured. And that's becoming more and more important. We keep hearing about that in the yoga world. People are getting injured. And that's not something that you want your clients or, students to wind up with.
Yeah. So, when you were speaking about how, yoga is for everybody and everybody should be able to do yoga. And if there are issues, and that's a big thing that I've noticed too, is like people will say, well, I just can't do yoga because, I can't do this or I can't do that. And so that's where the yoga therapy aspect is so important. So I think it's really great that even when you say you can do chair yoga, I'm into like, just do yoga. Like I sometimes say to people, just do yoga in your bed. If you've just lie down, you can just do a few poses there. It's not a problem. And I think what you mentioned earlier about the breathing is just so, so powerful, because it really is the breathing that, that shifts and changes everything. If you can bring your mind to your breath, you're set,
Right.
So I'd like to know from you, because we're going to have to close, wrap up, is what are your 3 favorite yoga poses, and what are your 3 main benefits, not for those poses in particular, but just the 3 benefits that you feel you gain from yoga, your own yoga practice, and how you really see, that supporting you in your diabetes management.
Okay, I tried to write down my 3, and I came up with 5. It's like,
no,
3 favorite. So I'm gonna say that my first one is down dog. If all you do is get up in the morning and kind of bend your way over and push yourself into any phase of down dog with bent knees, and you're doing a lot of benefits for yourself. And sometimes I'll wake up and I'll be stiff, and I'll just hang out there for a little bit. You're stretching a lot of your body, you're strengthening your arms, you're inverting. So many of the aspects of yoga you can get just in down dog. Doesn't even have to be a whole sun salutation. So I found that as a revelation. And then along those same lines, I like just a forward fold, whether it's standing. I love a standing forward fold. Again, depending on where you are in your day, if your hamstrings are really tight, then bend your legs and bend over. And what you're doing is you're massaging all your innards, our pancreas, our stomach, our liver. You're squeezing them and nourishing them, enhancing their circulation and the blood flow, plus you're getting an inversion. Sometimes I love to grasp my hands behind me when I'm doing, forward fold, and really stretch out my chest and my shoulder. Because of the computer, we're also, forward arching, and we want to lift our heart out. And so I just love doing that. Just feels delicious. Okay, the next one that I really love is I love to go into tree pose, and especially if I'm looking out a window at trees. And from tree, I like to go into dancer. And the reason, and I was thinking about this, the reason is that, okay, tree, you are balancing, so that's really great for your core, physically, structurally, it's really wonderful. But you're also, it's like a freedom. You're going towards the sky. You're reaching out. You're like embracing. These are your branches. Your feet are your roots. You're grounded. And then from there, I love to take one leg and reach out into a dancer pose. And again, it's kind of an extension of freedom. There's a joy with it, maybe because, again, your chest is spread and your heart is lifted. And even if you have to hold on to the wall. So I am so not a purist. If you don't have the balance, just touch the wall, hold the wall. there's something about that extension which I find extremely beautiful to do on both sides. So I know that's 3, but you have to let me do one more.
Okay.
So I love twisting, and you said something about doing it in bed. I love lying on my back with my arms out and then pulling in my knees and twisting to one side and then coming back, twisting to the other side, and maybe doing that a few times, and then going into happy baby. And this is all on your back. You could do it on bed, or you could just roll out of bed onto the floor, and going into happy baby. And there is something about happy baby. I know that they call it happy baby, but where and I love to roll on my back. So physically, you're massaging your kidneys, which with diabetes, our kidneys are often getting worked overtime. But you're also stretching, you're opening. It's a very playful, joyful position, and it makes me happy. So, then I can test my blood sugar. Then I can, change my infusion set or put in a new sensor for my CGM, and, all these bionic things that I'm walking around with. So those are some of my favorite poses.
That's wonderful. And so what are for you the 3 benefits that you feel you've really gained from yoga in managing your diabetes?
Okay. I wanted to say that last winter I had a physical restriction. I was having a sciatic problem, and it had to do with my spine, and I could not do any asana at all. And what I did was a lot of breathing and a lot of meditation. And it was almost like a challenge for me to accept that that is yoga. And the beautiful thing is I had to shut down a lot of my activities for about 3 months. So I had all this time, and I had developed a beautiful, if I didn't meditate at least 20 minutes a day, my day wasn't complete. But I was meditating for like 40 minutes, and then I was journaling, and then I was drawing, and it was so full and rich without any asana. I was breathing. I was doing alternate nostril breathing that really calmed me. Brahmari breathing, the buzzing, the humming, which I find fantastic. So it was really a great experiment on how beneficial yoga can be if you just sit and breathe and meditate. So yeah. And again, what I want to sum up is that, in addition to moving my body and getting, getting strength and stretch and twisting and nourishing my internal organs and moving my lymph system, that yoga, again, brings me back to who I am on the inside. And that I am not somebody walking around. I used to feel like I was walking around with a big D on top of my head, like everybody, that I basically am a diabetic. We're not that. Like, no, we are beautiful living people who have challenges that are a little bit unique, and that's why we need support. But it does not define who we are. And yes, there may be extra things we have to do, and maybe some restrictions. And, I have my CGM now goes into my iPhone, but for some reason right now it's telling me my signal is lost. I don't know why. I'm sitting right here. But yoga brings us to the self-compassion and the self-love and the joy, really, of connecting with spirit and the universe, so that we have the energy to go forth and do the things that we need to do to take the best care of our bodies as we can.
That's so beautiful. So is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we say goodbye?
Sure. I want to say that I'm so excited to have met Rachel, and her book is, I'm on hands and knees waiting for her book to come out. I saw a post about the book, and I instantly donated. It was like a no-brainer. So I really want to support her to bring this book to fruition, because I feel that it could benefit so many people. There is another book. I don't know if you've ever seen this one. It's called Yogic Management of Asthma and Diabetes. And it's pretty, it's written in the Bihar school in India. It's very classical, but there's a beautiful section on here, on poses to do for diabetes and which part of the body they're helping. And then there's an incredible guided visualization that I've used with people that I work with, where you visualize your pancreas, you visualize your islet cells, and you see them grow and become oasis of green, and the lightning coming up out of them. It's just the most amazing thing. And so I would like to see more things like this, that are tools that people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes can use, be inspired, use as a guide, share, because I think it's really important.
Yes, it definitely is. And it's morning here, so I haven't done my practice yet. It inspired me so much. I can't wait to get on my mat. I'm going to try tree and dancer pose.
Great, wonderful. Do a little happy baby.
I will. Oh, and happy baby. Actually, I lost the broadcast for a minute. You kept going, and I disappeared. Came back.
Okay.
It's okay. I'm sure we've got it. So thanks everyone for watching, and thank you so much, Karen. It's just been amazing to have a chat with you. And I'm going to put all Karen's links on below, so that you can find out more about her. And everyone have a lovely, lovely day. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Rachel. Be well. In peace.